Oh, hey Sarah, good morning. My
Morning.
name, May Sarah. So Sarah is joining us today to talk about her journey in genomics and nutrigenomics and how that has been so influential in her own health journey. So my name's Amanda Archibald. I'm in Western Wisconsin. And Sarah, whose family has a cabin in northern Wisconsin, is in Indianapolis, right?
That's right.
And we were just talking about the great food scene in Indianapolis. So I'm going to be down there and joining Sarah, hopefully sometime next year, and we're going to troll around a few good restaurants in
Yes, I would love that.
superb Midwestern city. So anyway, so I host a Facebook group for experts, clinicians around the world who are working in nutrigenomics and genomics. And Sarah is one of our members, if you will, or in our contributors whose voice pops up a lot when we get deep into these conversations about nutrigenomics and how it's influencing lives. And so today I want to chat with Sarah about her own journey in nutrigenomics. So Sarah, we were just talking, you actually did your undergraduate degree in communications, and now you're doing your graduate work in nutrition. So clearly, or dietetics. So clearly, nutrition got a hold of your life. So can you tell us a little bit about your journey, why you went, changed kind of directions a little bit?
Yeah. So I got my undergrad from Indiana State in 2006 in communications, and I had a minor in psychology, and I played volleyball there for 4 years. So I was a Division I athlete, and my freshman year we had to chart, a lot of what we were eating, calorie counts, make sure we were balancing everything. We didn't have a dietitian on staff. And so we did a lot with our coach and just kind of were figuring things out on how best to fuel the body for performance. And so I definitely have a background with, food and just understanding that perspective for sports nutrition. And then I got married, and my husband and I have been married for 12 years now, and we have 2 little boys. Zeke is 5 and Wesley is 3. And so we kind of had a little bit of challenge, just even trying to get pregnant a couple years after we got married. And so, yeah. So,
I'm going to
yeah.
come back to that.
Yeah, we'll come back to that. Yeah, or I can kind of share a little bit of that too. But like when I got married, I was like, well, I'll take birth control. That's what everybody kind of does. And so I didn't really know there would be any harm in that. And I sort of got like really hazy with my personality and brain fog, mood swings, things like that. And then I'd also traveled internationally a little bit. In 2005, I went on a sports missions trip. And then in 2010, I went on another one, and my husband came with me to East Africa. And so at those times, I had a lot of vaccine boosters at that time. And then I was also on the birth control. And so kind of after that, it was like things just started happening that were really weird. I started having reactions to like my contact lenses. So I have like a sensitivity to silicone, which is like super rare, or else the preservatives in the contact lenses. And then I started having food sensitivities and things like that.
Things that you've never had before, like you suddenly notice these changes.
Yeah. So they kind of came on really slowly. I was really, really tired a lot. I felt like I never felt rested. I could sleep for 10 hours and then wake up in the morning and be like, I knew it was time to get up, but I just never felt refreshed or rested with my sleep.
Even though you had slept, right?
Yes.
You went to bed, you knew you were sleeping, but you woke up like, and was this before you got pregnant or afterwards?
That stuff started before I got pregnant. After we had, so we were living in Dallas at the time, I'd also had like an anaphylactic reaction to some fire ant stings as well. So there's just a lot of inflammation going on. And then we moved to Chicago, and that's about when we were like, well, let's try and start a family. And when we moved to Chicago, we stayed in a corporate housing, sorry, that's the word, corporate housing. And they had just redone the carpets and like just cleaned them. And I was walking barefoot on them. And like within just maybe an hour, I felt really, really physically sick.
Wow.
And at that point, like my period stopped for like 10 months. So I didn't have a cycle. And I was like, well, you can't really get pregnant if you're not having a cycle.
So your
So
body slammed into some kind of brick wall, basically.
yeah. So there was just a lot going on. And so we had gone to like a fertility clinic and, I just wanted to figure out what was going on. We weren't super stressed about it. It was just like, I just want to feel good. That the goal is not necessarily to, lose weight or get pregnant necessarily, at least for us. Like, I just wanted to feel good. I wanted my personality to be what it once was and to not feel like something's wrong with me. And I'd also,
You, Sarah, at that time.
how old was I?
Yeah.
This was in like 2011, 2010, 2011. So about 10 years ago. And then when I was 7, just to kind of loop something else in, I'd actually had mono when I was 7 years old, which was really strange because nobody else around me really had it. And I stayed home for a month and slept a lot. And so we know that I had an Epstein-Barr infection just really early on in life. And when you have that, it just kind of becomes latent and can kind of rear its ugly head, here and there. So
just to recap, so when you started going to try and feel better, during this time you were thinking about getting pregnant, how old were you then? So we said it was 10 years ago.
Yeah. So 35 now, 84, 94. So I was like 27, 28.
So you were young. I mean, still young to suddenly have these experiences that a lot of times we associated with getting older. It's like,
Yeah.
I'm thinking clearly it's like having an older age attack, but you were young.
Yeah.
So you went to so what happened then? You were kind of going through to try and feel better. When did you hit the wall again and said, this is not the right direction for me?
So when we had gone to the fertility clinic, I learned that I had PCOS. And so, but even before they had taken blood work, they were like, okay, well, you could start Clomid or we could do IUI. And I'm like, hold on a second. We haven't even addressed if I could even carry a pregnancy. Like, what are my hormones like? I have no idea. And so I've already felt super guarded just with that. And so my husband and I were like, that's not really the route we want to go down. We were always open for adoption and we probably will at some point in the future. So it's just always been on our hearts. And so we're like, it's okay. And we'll just figure it out. And I'd had a test for thyroid antibodies done with a more functional gynecologist, and I had thyroid antibodies present. And so she said, you need to stop eating gluten. So I was like, okay, I don't know what that means, but all right. And I did. And within like 2 weeks, I got pregnant. And so it was a little crazy. I didn't know at the time that meant I had Hashimoto's, and that was in about 2013. 2013. So I got pregnant with my first son. Felt amazing during pregnancy, like amazing. Your
body was given everything for that kid.
Felt so good. I mean, my first trimester was the typical, but it wasn't anything horrible. And then I had my first son, and about 3 months postpartum, like I just started having issues eating. Like I would get cramps after eating like eggs, and then it went into butter, and then it was kind of like, well, I don't really know what's going on. And so that was really hard. My son didn't sleep a lot. He was very active and busy, and is to this day. And so he was about 5 months old, and I was on the L in Chicago. And after eating like a particularly fatty breakfast, not knowing what was triggering me, my brother said, well, you might want to get your gallbladder looked at. And I was like, I don't know what a gallbladder does, but okay, let's go with that. And so I literally got on the train with my baby and had my ergo carrier on, and I was like, I am going to throw up.
Oh no.
And so there happened to be a midwife who was off duty, who was a few seats down from me, and she came over and she thought I was falling asleep. And so like I pushed her out of the way and accidentally hit my son's head on the handrail, and I threw up on the train. And handed my baby to a stranger next to me, and my phone with my husband's phone number. I'm like, if I pass out, here's my husband's number. It was really scary to like be by myself and to have that happen. It was kind of traumatic. But the thing with the the proteins and fats when I would eat is that after about 4 hours, I was fine. And so it would last for about 4 hours. So I went immediately to the ER. My husband picked me up at a train stop. The midwife got off with me. She was so sweet. And we went to the hospital and we sat in the ER. When I saw the doctor, she was like, I don't see anything wrong with you. Your labs are fine. And so it was just like, like, I know.
You're normal.
I know.
You feel like crap. You're normal.
I know. So it's just, I totally understand why people get so discouraged and get depressed, because they're like, I know I'm not myself, but no one knows what's wrong with me.
Exactly.
And I've had so many, ER visits like that, where they literally, and I can see on their faces, they're like, I'm so sorry. We can't
tell you what's wrong with you.
So
when did you guys had like this long journey into getting to a point where you said, I've got to figure out what's going wrong with. So what was that point, and how did you end up turning to nutrigenomics?
Yes.
And then we're going to discuss your test.
Yeah. So I did have my gallbladder removed, felt awesome. Things went well. Yeah. So I was like, all right, great. We fixed it.
We're good to go. We fixed the thyroid and the gallbladder. Great.
Yeah. Started struggling with fatigue again as I weaned my first son and were considering getting pregnant with my second. My progesterone was like so low. I don't know how I got pregnant with him. So we did get pregnant with him. We were supplementing with some hormones, and then had my second son. Everything went well, felt amazing during pregnancy.
Your body just says, right.
I know. I'm like, I could be a professional surrogate, right? It just doesn't seem like a good long-term plan.
Not really.
So had my second son, everything went great. And then 3 months postpartum, the same thing
again. Yeah.
Same foods, everything. And I was like, okay, God is like, you need to pay attention to this. I'm making this so obvious for you with the exact same thing going on. So that's when I started seeing a functional medicine practitioner. And so she was like, I think we need to start looking at genetics, because she was kind of coming to the end, with what
her ideas. Yeah.
She officially had diagnosed me with the Hashimoto's before I got pregnant with my second son. And then she's like, we got to start looking at genetics. So we did a cheek swab, nutrigenomics test. And then when that came back, she was like, you're not methylating. And I was like, what does that mean?
And when I said, the initial fertility issues, right? Your body is brilliant and say, no, right?
Yeah.
So go ahead. You're not methylating, which means what?
Not methylating. So essentially just not detoxing well, not converting my B vitamins well. And that was just like, I'm looking this report and, a little bit looks like a language I don't know, but then I'm reading some of the notes and we're discussing it. And I'm like, this is amazing. Mm-hmm. Like, what is this? And so that would in that moment, the light bulb turned on. I was like, why are more people not doing this? I'm like, it sort of takes the guesswork out of a lot of things, right? So if you understand you're not absorbing your B12 well, or your folate well, or maybe you don't even make enough intrinsic factor in your stomach to bind your B12, we got to make adjustments and sort of biohack your body into being able to absorb your nutrition better.
Right. And that you make a really good point, because not being able to absorb your B12, that's sort of, that happens sort of the lower end of your digestive tract, but that completely impacts macronutrient metabolism, right? Fat, protein, carbohydrates, the top end. So bingo.
If you have low stomach acid, that connection's never even being made. And then it goes all, like you said, all the way through to the end of your small intestine to be absorbed. It's kind of a miracle if you think about it. It's a miracle to make a baby. It seems like a miracle to be able to absorb your B12 at all.
It is. And sometimes we have genes that prevent that. So what's interesting in you, okay, so we're going to jump over and talk a little bit about the test. I just want to make one observation, and then because not everyone's a clinician,
Yeah,
and let's talk
absolutely.
about what methylation is. But we know, in fact, there's one company I work with, genetic testing company, that they actually have what they call a hormone and fertility panel. And integral to that is the folate cycle, because
Yes.
the folate cycle is essential to producing the base nucleotides for your DNA itself. So the body's brilliant. It's like, you're not going to get pregnant because guess what? We may not be able to create enough base units so that we can kind of fuel the protein building of a new
Right.
baby. It's brilliant. And you also mentioned obviously there's a lot of other complications in getting pregnant, but that one is like aha. And it was one of the first things I picked up on when I just looked very quickly at your test. It didn't say, hey, she can't get pregnant. It just says, hey, she's got some issues with 3 core cycles. So methylation, for those of you listening in, is basically methyl groups are a carbon with 3 hydrogens. And I like to think of them as hooks. So the metabolic hooks that get shuttled around the body and activate other proteins or enzymes so that they can do their work in that specific biochemical system. So it's a very, very important molecule that is shuttled everywhere in the body. So, okay. All right. So you saw right away through your test. So once you kind of got into it, you said, oh my God, this is a code I can't understand. And that's what I like to tell people. It's like when we look at genomic information, it takes a while to learn how to interpret it. But once you do, it's a new language that essentially tells the story of somebody's life, right?
Yes.
And so were you able, once you understood your test, you worked with your functional medicine practitioner, did it tell your story through your genes? Did it explain? Did it start to put some pieces together that explained you?
Yeah, I think so, especially the fatigue component, because within like 2 days of taking a methyl B complex, I could eat without cramping, like within 48 hours. Like that was a miracle in so many ways for me. And I was like, okay, there's something to this. Because I had taken, prenatal vitamins, but they made me so nauseous.
Yeah, the wrong vitamin.
The wrong kind, right? So I just I didn't feel better taking them. So even with my second pregnancy, I don't think I even really took a prenatal, because with my first, it was just like forcing it, it just was like, if it's going to make me feel horrible, is that good for you?
Your body has innate intelligence, right?
Yeah.
And I think it does have innate wisdom. And I think a lot of what we've lost in this day and age is the ability to tap into our innate wisdom, because the body will tell you what to do. And it's not woo-woo and frou-frou. We know this, spiritually or innately in ourselves. So your reaction to the wrong supplement was the right reaction. It's your body saying, do not go down this route.
Yeah.
So, okay, so that B vitamin, so that's interesting. So that connected to the lifting of your fatigue, probably because you were able to support the digestive tract. I mean, that's a very short summary of a very complex science, right? But you're able to initiate the breakdown of carbohydrate, fat, and protein so you can extract energy. That's the end result, right, of eating. What else? Did you notice your brain fog lifted, or how long did that take?
Yeah, actually, that's a good question, because I recall many times just doing my undergrad, and even in high school, I would read textbooks and just read the same sentence over and over and over again and just never really retain it. And now I read so many medical studies every day, and I can recall them at the drop of a hat, and people are like, whoa, you know a lot. And so I have to go, okay, maybe this isn't everyone's normal, and so I have to like slow it down a little bit and kind of break down, give analogies, things like that. So I can recall things so much better. I actually started methyl B12 injections 2 or 3 months after I started my methyl B complex. And the first time I did that, I was like, whoa, I have energy. Like I was baby wearing my son and walking with my 2-year-old. And I was like, all right, guys, we're ready to go. Whereas I used to be barely able to get out of bed. And I'm like, so sorry, buddy. Like mommy's so tired today. And I do know that I had Epstein-Barr reactivating quite a bit throughout my story as well. And actually most recently this year, I had my amalgams removed. They were cracking my teeth. So I was going to leave them alone and had them removed, and it re-triggered an Epstein-Barr reactivation for me. So then I had to go through all of that fatigue again. And so now I'm just trying to gauge, when I'm feeling good and when I'm feeling bad, I'm like, okay, I need to do my Epstein-Barr protocol again. Let's, do some of those antivirals and more
Yeah,
that.
yeah, once you have it, it's always with you, but knowledge is powerful. So what's interesting about, and I look very, very quickly, 5 minutes before us actually jumping on to record this conversation, I look very, very quickly at your genomics. So your test is a clinically relevant test. This is not an over-the-counter entertainment form of genomics. It's what we actually order to look from a clinical perspective. So it's a very good test from MaxGen Labs. And immediately I saw, and it was very fast, by the way, but I could definitely see the connection between your folate, the methylation, and then your transsulfuration cycle. So transsulfuration is where we produce glutathione, is so integral to biotransformational detoxification. So that, so you're taking a methyl B12, so that will it's a gateway into methylation cycle. What about your B6 that was so integral to detoxification, because you had several variants, I think, with CBS that might make detoxification a little bit more hindered with you. So
sure. The methyl B complex I have has like a P5 even. Yeah. Complex. Sorry. So I was doing injections because I know that the B12 is feels like it needs to come first for me, and then more of the folate and the B6 and all of that. So I do take the P5P is involved with my complex as well. Yeah. So I don't think I could pinpoint, if I were to do them individually, what was helping more than another. Just together.
You just needed a shuttle for your body. And the bottom line is this with genomics, which is why it's so interesting in your story, is you are the perfect example of somebody who doesn't feel right, who gets all the conventional labs right. And, the poor medical staff's like, you're okay, but you're not okay. So nutrigenomics allows us to look deeper at how the genes are directing production of protein and enzymes in the body. And we're able, through that, exactly as you said, and your functional medicine doctor said, this is what's happening with you, we think. So she probably ordered biomarkers, right, to validate your B12 levels and folate.
Yeah. And they were low. I still struggle with macrocytic anemia even to this day. And the pernicious anemia as well. So there's still things we're trying to figure out and fine tune and hack that way. So
so it's like it gave you a direction, and that's what we always say with genomics. It gives us a signpost in the nutrition and medical toolbox as to where to go and where to look first. It doesn't give you a diagnosis. It gives you a new level of understanding and where to look, and bingo, you nailed at least that first layer just by looking at genomic testing.
Well, and we keep looking, some patients will go and have their B12 tested and they say, oh, it's high. And it's like, well, that's your blood level. Yes. What's getting into the cell where we need it to be? Exactly. And so then I'm even, telling other people who see these labs, and I'm like, have they tested for methylmalonic acid to see if you're actually absorbing that B12? And then that high B12 can mask that folate deficiency. And so there's so many things you're like, well, if you don't understand those labs, it's really hard to interpret them correctly. And they're like, well, my B12 is fine. It's over whatever number. It's like,
no, let's match that to symptoms. And that is, you really nail it too, really honed in on a really important part, that the level of knowledge we need to work with genomics requires us to be knowledgeable in the area of functional nutrition. Yes. You talked about functional medicine, because we use different types of testing, more accurate, more advanced sort of diagnostic nutrition tests, such as your micronutrients via like a SpectraCell, something like that, where you're looking at the RBC level. So it's almost looking at, historically, how's your body absorbing and handling and storing these nutrients, as opposed to what's happening right here, right now. If you went to the ER, right, and say, hey, you look fine. I'm like,
you lose so much hope too. Like if I could do, just say one thing, it's just to like restore hope for people that they can improve. Like I was laying on the floor, like with cramps with two small babies at home, asking my 2.5-year-old to bring me my phone to call a neighbor.
Yeah.
Like after having just water in the morning, and like, that low stomach acid issue is just so clincher, but nobody's really testing you for that. And I saw a GI specialist trying to do my due diligence, and he gave me a prescription and said, you're going to be on this for the rest of your life. When I had IBS at the time, and
Right.
things like that. And I'm like, that cannot be true. Like, I don't believe you that
Yeah.
there's nothing I can do with my diet in order to improve my health. And this is coming from a GI specialist, and I had read a statistic just in the last couple of weeks that only 14% of medical doctors feel confident in giving any kind of nutrition advice. And
Sure,
so
and that's a fault.
you go talk to your doctor, and it's like they have no training, with all due respect to medical doctors. They just don't have the background and training in nutrition that a dietitian, and even especially a more functional nutrition dietitian, would. And so that's why I decided to go to school to be a dietitian.
Well, we're glad you're part of the crowd, because you're the best testimony, and you've come in at a time where we have such advances in our own training, functional nutrition training and nutrigenomics. And I really feel that, this is also filtering into the medical field. So we can't blame doctors for their training to date, but I'm certainly, and I know you are, working with doctors who are getting the training. And,
Yes.
and if you're listening in, it's a huge commitment. If like I've been in the field of nutrition for 25 years, it was a huge commitment for me to kind of go back and pull up all the knowledge I knew and apply it again and learn again in this new field of nutrigenomics. So I think doctors are going to come in leaps and bounds. They're definitely interested. It's like the time. Is it the time?
Yeah.
But fortunately,
it's very exciting when we want to see patients and clients improve, utilizing the new medical literature that we have now. If the human genome was mapped, it was at 2007,
2003,
2003, excuse me. Like from 2003 to now, that's not that much time. Like you have to design a study. You have to have that hypothesis, design a study, and come out with your results, right? So we're getting new stuff every day. Like, oh, this new SNP, we just learned that it does this, or it does this. And so, just adjustments. And one we thought did this might change. It might change, or go, oh, we thought it was this, but it's really,
SNPs SNPs are these different variants in our genes that differentiate us, actually, and depending on the variant, we know how it may function beneficially or maybe not so beneficially in the body. And that's where we really need, and we have excellent science. And it's important that when we're looking at genomics, we're working with companies who've rigorously investigated the science so we understand the reports. But you're right, more and more is emerging every single day. I think we're just sort of at the beginning of this revolution that's going to change medicine and really change people's lives and give you an answer to, this is what's wrong, or better still, this is what's out of balance. And this is what we feel we can do to help your body restore its balance, because the body has innate wisdom. All it wants is homeostasis, right? All it wants is to find balance. But you have to look at where the imbalances are. So
that's right.
Anyway, so Sarah, you've been amazing. You are our, first in a series of interviews. I want to have you back, as you continue, through your journey. When you finish with your graduate studies and can jump in and build your talents, when are you done?
Oh, well, I actually applied for my program in January. I've been doing prerequisites for the last 18 months. So if you didn't know it, dietitians have to do microbiology, biochemistry, organic chemistry. If you want to be a dietitian and take organic chemistry and not be an MD, you really want to be a dietitian.
It's hard science.
Yeah, so it should be about 2022 in the summer. I should.
Well, you're gonna fast track through it because you've done experience. You've done all the investigative, so you're gonna ace it and be in our ranks with us in 2022. So thank you for taking time out from your family and sharing your story. It's fantastic. We will be talking to you again.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Sarah.